disturbing interviews I ever did was with a guy in Colombia called The Wrecker, which his name is El Deshuesador, which means the wrecker or the deboner. He takes the bones. Yeah, it's a horrible name, Deshuesador. And he works for the clan, and we got to him. When you watch the cocaine episode, we interviewed a commander in Colombia who was part of the cocaine trade. And it was basically through him and some other contacts that we got an interview with this. The guns that people are buying, and particularly with this last episode on ghost guns, which is the fact that the guns that are now these untraceable and licensed guns are so easy to make, and so many of them are ending up in crime scenes across America and on the hands of gang members and, militant groups and anti-government groups. And it's scary. And that's all what we're trying to do as a journalist, myself, when we decided to do these stories, because I started hearing from people talking about how these guns are ending up in the wrong place. And
how do they make a ghost gun?
It is. I'm happy you're asking that, because I think it's the biggest. People don't understand out there. They think that when you talk about ghost guns that it has to be 3D printed. It's not. A ghost gun is an untraceable gun. Doesn't mean that it has to be 3D printed. However, nowadays it's basically so it's a gun that doesn't have a serial number, and it could have had a serial number, and the serial number was scrubbed, and maybe they put a new fake serial number in there. But what happens is, because of the 3D printers, it's now super easy to just print a gun or gun parts at home. So there are all these companies out there who sell 80% kits that have everything to build a gun except for the receiver. But there's a company, for example, called Defense Distributed, ran by Cody Wilson, who was the first one to use a ghost gun, or a 3D printed gun. Actually, it was called the Liberator. And he got into all sorts of trouble with...
The Liberator.
Yeah. And he's a strong believer in... he said he wanted his company to be sort of the WikiLeaks for guns, so that everybody could have access to guns. So he sells these kits that are 80% kits, and it's everything you need to buy a gun except for the lower receiver, which is what the ATF and the government actually considers to be the gun.
What part is the lower receiver?
It depends on which weapon, I believe, but it's the bottom. On the guns that he's selling, it's sort of the bottom piece.
Oh, okay.
There's the Liberator.
Yeah, that is a Liberator. Yeah, so this is all 3D printed. And he showed me...
That's an actual gun, that plastic thing?
That is. And,
somebody pulled that on me, I'd be skeptical.
And this was several years ago. It's evolved a lot. It's evolved a lot since then.
Yeah.
Ghost gun.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a real gun, that plastic thing?
Guns too.
Yeah.
And so
but if you want to see some of the new ones and what they're making, and these are also ghost guns.
And some of that is metal. So where do they get
some of it is
the
metal
parts?
It can be all 3D printed. Some of it is metal. So you can buy it from companies like Cody Wilson's. And then
they 3D print metal?
Oh, nowadays, yes. You can
really?
You can have it's like a polymer. I can't remember.
Polymer?
Polymer material that is. Yeah, that's what a lot of the guns are actually made
like a carbon fiber or something. Because
Mm-hmm.
I've seen carbon fiber barrels for hunting rifles. They make them very light so that people can take them into the backcountry when they go deep into the woods.
There's all the kind of parts you can make with it.
Wow.
We found out about them because we were reporting in Kentucky, and we were the sheriff who was, overdoses all around them, people, dying, devastating his community, and a lot of the pill bottles had this name, American Pain. And we went down there and we took out the camera, and my husband took out the camera, and the first shot we got immediately, within minutes, this big SUV came with two big guys who were threatening us and started yelling at us and telling us to leave, that we weren't allowed to film. So we drove off, and I'm driving, and this is actually in the film, but I'm driving and my husband's filming, and they're right behind us. And we decided to film this as the last thing. We were heading to the airport. And we're driving down 985 to head to the airport, and they start following us. And then I realize I have very little gas. So I stop at the gas station, and they stop right behind us, and they come out of the car. And these were big guys. And the day before, we'd been watching The Sopranos. So in my mind, they were coming out guns a-blazing, and they were going to kill us both. So I drove off. I was so nervous, and I drove off, and they continued following us, and I didn't put gas in the car. So we're on 995, and we called 911 and said, hey, we're being followed by this car, and to explain the situation. And then I ran out of gas as we were filming, and I pulled over to the curb, but they were so sort of surprised, shocked. They had no idea, confused by what was happening, that they just parked behind us and they never came out of the car, and then the police arrived. And then they made up an excuse that they thought I was an old girlfriend or something like that. But my husband took down their license plates and found out their names, and it was the George brothers, Jeff and Chris George, who were running the biggest prescription or pill mill in America's history. They were making, I think, something like $40 million a year out of this small little pill mill, strip mall clinic, and it was incredible. And then a year later, one of them just left prison, and the other one was still in prison.
So those were the guys that were following you, the guys that owned the organization.
Yeah, owned American Pain. Our
Wow.
organization was just a strip mall pain clinic with thousands of patients that would come in and out, and tons of doctors writing prescription pills. And when we were working at the time, where we'd been interviewing off the record a DEA agent who didn't want to go on the record, that we later found out was actually investigating them, and they had wiretaps. So in Darren's movie, he got his hands on all the wiretaps, so you could hear them. And part of it, there's a part where they talk about us and our film and how we were trying to look into them. So it all sort of came. Yeah,
That's it. South Florida.
yeah.
Pain
So
Clinic.
it's South Florida Pain.
So people are taking those gorillas and stealing them.
Stealing them, and for example, chimpanzees are super protective, as are gorillas, of their families and their kids.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that a lot of times you have to kill the mother in order to be able to take the babies. So it's when you're stealing one, it's not just one. Sometimes it's the whole family that dies so that you can take the baby with you.
Oh, God.
But these chimps can go for tens of thousands of dollars, and so there's a real incentive there. And we ended up speaking with a guy who bought the chimps from the hunters and then was selling them, was sort of a middleman, and was telling us how he carries them, how he transports them, all of it. It's really horrible.
How much of a demand is there for these things?
Apparently a gigantic demand.
Really?
And there's videos out there that you can see on Instagram and YouTube of people, a little less now, but just a few, but it still exists, but a few years ago, people posting photos of them with their private gorillas and chimpanzees that they just bought.
And a lot of it is UAE, you were saying?
A lot of it is UAE. Yeah. Right now, the trade is a lot of it is UAE, and yeah.
And they have private zoos. Did you visit any of these private zoos?
We tried. We got denied access. We didn't get a visa to go to Dubai, unfortunately, to film it. We wanted to, but we didn't get a visa.
So in Dubai, they have these private zoos.
We know of a few of them that we heard, and we wanted to go visit and ask questions and continue our investigation to find if any of them had come from the Congo.
And who are these people that have these private zoos? Just really, really wealthy people?
Some are not even public zoos, so it's private, so it's just for them and their friends. There are others that have parks, a little bit like Doc Antle's Safari Park, where people can come and pay and visit the wild animals. Yeah, all sorts. And some people like to post it on Instagram, or people pay to go and take selfies with these animals, which I cannot believe that this is still a thing that happens today. People pay and want to take selfies with wild animals. It's very sad because it's incentivizing the trade. O'Neill post of being a king. So we visited the king at his palace, and it was a proper palace. And we asked for his permission to film in his land. And once we got that permission, we were able to film one of these huge sites where they're bunkering, they're stealing the oil. And the site that is covered, the floor is covered with oil. It's black, black, black. And then you see these areas where they start refining the oil that has been stolen from the pipes. And there's smoke, and all the trees that used to be green, because these are swamps, are all black. It's straight out of your vision of hell. Everything is burnt and black, and you've got hundreds of people working, women who carry the huge bags with the refined oil, with the diesel.
This is it right here?
Yeah, this is it.
You see that photo up there, Jamie? Which one? The one at the top, the big one? Look at that.
Yeah,
Oh
you see?
God.
So that's where they're refining the oil, the big...
Oh my God.
It is really
and
insane.
They're covered
and
soot and all the smoke and
And they don't have, a lot of them are barefoot and they're walking through, this guy has boots, but a lot of them that we saw were barefoot, particularly the women, and they're, covered in oil.
What kind of health consequences are these people facing because of this?
Yeah, it's really, and it speaks to the desperation. They're making like less than $1 a day by doing this. It's really, really sad. So we arrive at this location, and we'd finally been given permission to film, and it's hundreds of people. And we started filming, and then suddenly we see a group of people coming our way and yelling and picking up buckets of hot oil and threatening to throw it at my cameraman, Josh. It was a really, really scary moment. We captured it on camera. And we were yelling back, please don't. And the idea was that they thought we were white people coming from an oil corporation that were trying to shut down their operation, which would mean that they wouldn't have that $1 a day to bring back to their family. So I had to spend a lot of time showing them my press pass, telling them that I'm a journalist. I promise I'm not here as an oil corporation. I'm a journalist. And eventually it sort of calmed down and we were able to film. But it was a crazy, crazy experience.
When you're in those situations, is there a cell service where you could pull up a video of your show?
Yeah, I usually do Instagram, and that's in that case there was actually self-service, and I showed Instagram. I showed, you see, I'm a journalist, but also what I get a lot is, I mean, yeah, you could have made that up, which is true.
Right.
You could have made this up, but yeah, I always carry a press pass that says National Geographic, and it has my name with me as well. In some countries, that actually helps more than whatever is online. So it was definitely one of the sort of most dangerous moments because he was ready to throw. We did one on organs. The first episode of the season was organ trafficking.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That one scares the shit out of me.
It was the first episode, and it was, yeah, I think it all we all think it's a rumor and it can't really exist, and it's a Hollywood depiction of stuff going on.
Oh, I don't think it's a rumor.
But that doesn't really exist. But when I started looking into the story, I was like, is this really a thing? And then we found out it really is a thing. So we traveled to Colombia and Mexico and here in the U.S., and we spent time filming people involved in the trade. And I think one of the most disturbing interviews I ever did was with a guy in Colombia called The Wrecker, which his name is El Deshuesador, which means the wrecker or the deboner. He takes the bones. Yeah, it's a horrible name, Deshuesador. And he works for the clan, and we got to him. When you watch the cocaine episode, we interviewed a commander in Colombia who's part of the cocaine trade, and it was basically through him and some other contacts that we got an interview with this guy. And it was horrible because he's telling us how he does what he does. And so much of it was so horrific that I had a hard time actually believing what he was saying.
Like, what was he saying?
How he cuts people alive, how he takes the organ. So I was asking him a question like, how exactly do you take it? Like, if you're talking about a liver, like, how exactly do you take a liver from somebody? I wanted him to explain, but do you have any medical training? And again, one of the difficult things with the show that we do is corroborating what people are telling us. So with him, I kept on asking him, because it takes so long to even get this one person to talk to us. So how do we corroborate what he's saying? So I kept on asking him, like, exactly how do you operate on them, and how do you? And all of this is I'm very transparent about all of this. And in the show, I talk about not being absolutely 100% sure that what he's telling me is true or not. But he then showed me a video of them with a person and, some body parts, some organs coming out of. But again, it is very hard to corroborate because it could have been a dead body, and they were taking organs from a dead body, which in that case wouldn't be viable for transplant unless it had just died. So there's a lot of questions there. The video was really horrific, and we decided not to air it, even though I sort of talk a little bit about what I'm seeing, but we decided not to air the video. But it was horrible because, again, with trying to always empathize and understand why people do what they do, this one was impossible. Like, there was no part of me that I understood what he did. And that's why it was so much disbelief. But then we find out that this trade is very much alive and